smartest people sometimes believe the strangest things. Picture a master locksmith, someone who can pick any lock, bypass any security system, decode the most intricate safes ever designed. Now imagine this expert is accidentally locked in a room. Instead of trying to escape, something strange happens. They begin using their vast knowledge to convince themselves the door should be locked. They invent 100 brilliant reasons why staying inside is the only logical choice. They aren't trapped by the lock. They're trapped by their own mastery of it. This is the intelligence paradox. The smarter you are, the better you become at defending beliefs you should have abandoned. When smart people stumble into flawed ideas, they don't just hold them. They defend them with sophistication an average mind couldn't dream of. They have the vocabulary to rename biases as perspectives, and the cognitive power to find evidence in the most obscure corners. They aren't searching for truth. They're using their brilliant minds to build a more beautiful cage. Think of a strategist who makes a catastrophic error. Instead of admitting the mistake, they weave a narrative so complex that critics get tired of untangling it. They use intelligence to create noise that sounds like signal. It's a strange irony. The better you are at thinking, the better you are at convincing yourself your worst thoughts are actually your best. So get comfortable. Adjust your pillow. Take a deep, slow breath. And as we begin, notice how this locksmith story might echo in your own life. How many times have you defended a position not because it was right, but because you'd already committed to it? As you settle into the stillness of your room now, let the weight of your own cleverness go. Tonight, you don't need to be the locksmith or the strategist. There's no one here to debate, no case to win. Let the complex justifications drift away like smoke. In the silence, you are not a smart person. You are just a person, and you are allowed to simply be. The self-image paradox. Think of a person who prides themselves on being a skeptic. They wear their rationality like a suit of shining armor. They tell everyone they meet that they only follow the data, that they have no sacred cows, and that they are perfectly willing to change their mind if the evidence shifts. But here is the catch. That very identity, the rational skeptic, becomes the most sacred cow of all. They become so invested in the image of being logical that they lose the ability to actually be logical. This is the silent rot at the center of a smart mind. The more your identity depends on being the person who is always right or always objective, the more terrifying it becomes to admit a simple, human error. To admit you were wrong isn't just a change of opinion. It feels like a shattering of your soul's foundation. To avoid this, the brain quietly filters out any information that might make the armor look dented. We become prisoners of our own reputation for wisdom. We see this in the intellectual who spends decades defending a theory that has clearly been surpassed. They aren't being stubborn out of malice. They are being stubborn out of survival. They have built their entire life, career, friendships, self-worth on a specific take. To update it would be to admit they've been a fool for 20 years. So they stay in the armor even as it becomes a coffin. Let your mind soften tonight. Imagine unbuckling that armor piece by piece. Lay down the heavy breastplate of being right. Remove the helmet of having an answer. You don't need a take on anything right now. No one is looking at your reputation. No one is checking your track record. You are allowed to be confused. You are allowed to be a work in progress. Let the rigid self-image dissolve into the soft edges of the night. You are more than your opinions. You are the space in which opinions come and go, like clouds passing over a quiet, dark lake. The ego safety paradox. Imagine your mind is a grand library, and at the center of that library is a small, private room where you keep the master book of you. This book contains everything you believe to be true about your character, your worth, and your place in the world. Now, imagine a stranger walks in and points to a page in that book, claiming it is a lie. Even if the stranger has proof, your first instinct isn't to check the facts. Your first instinct is to push them out of the room. This isn't a logical reaction. It's a biological panic. The brain does not distinguish between a threat to your body and a threat to your beliefs. When someone challenges an idea you hold dear, your amygdala, the ancient, reptilian part of your brain, lights up as if a predator just stepped out of the shadows. This is why smart people can become so incredibly aggressive in a simple debate. They aren't fighting for the truth, they are fighting for their lives. We see this in the way people cling to sunk costs. If you've spent 5 years and thousands of dollars on a flawed project or a painful relationship, your ego will refuse to see the flaws. To see them would be to admit that you wasted a part of your life. So instead, your brilliant mind invents a hidden purpose for the pain. You tell yourself it's a test. You wrap the error in a blanket of destiny just to keep the ego warm. As you lie here in the safety of the dark, notice where your body is holding tension. You don't have to solve anything tonight. The world is vast and indifferent to your mistakes, and in that indifference there is a profound peace. Let the library doors close. Let the master book rest on its shelf. You are not your beliefs. You are the one who is breathing. The hidden reward paradox. Why do we hold on to beliefs that make us miserable? Why does a smart person continue to believe they are unlucky or that the world is out to get them, even when things are going well? It seems irrational until you look for the hidden reward. Every belief we hold, no matter how destructive, usually offers us a secret paycheck. It might be the paycheck of never having to take a risk, or the paycheck of always having someone else to blame. We like to think we are truth seekers, but we are actually reward seekers with a veneer of logic. A smart person will develop an incredibly complex philosophy of pessimism or cynicism not because it's true, but because it protects them from the pain of disappointment. They trade the truth for a sense of invulnerability. They use their intelligence to justify their caution, and they call that caution wisdom. Think of the person who stays in a toxic workplace. They see the problems around them, but they stay because the group offers them the paycheck of belonging and importance. Their mind begins to work overtime to explain away the red flags. They aren't being stupid, they are being compensated. We all have a price at which we are willing to stop looking for the truth. As you prepare for sleep, ask yourself, what paychecks am I tired of earning? You don't need those rewards tonight. Imagine yourself walking away from the marketplace of ideas. You aren't buying anything and you aren't selling anything. You are just walking into the cool, quiet woods of sleep, where the only reward is the silence itself. The coincidence paradox. Imagine you think of an old childhood friend you haven't spoken to in 20 years, and at that exact moment your phone vibrates with a message from them. It feels electric. It feels like a sign from the universe. But here is the quiet truth. In a world of 8 billion people, 1 in a million events happen 8,000 times every day. Probability is cold, indifferent math, but to a human mind it feels like fate. Smart people, who love to think deeply about the interconnectedness of things, are often the most easily seduced by coincidence. They use their reflective minds to turn a statistical inevitability into a spiritual or philosophical truth. They think, what are the odds? And because they can't calculate them quickly, they assume the answer is destiny. They believe they are being guided or tested, simply because they find it hard to accept that the universe is just very large and very busy. We want to believe we are the main character in a movie where every random encounter is a plot point. This isn't stupidity, it's a desire for intimacy with the universe. We want to feel like the cosmos is talking to us. Tonight, let yourself be one small, quiet point in an infinite field of possibilities. Feel the relief of being a coincidence yourself, a beautiful, random accident of biology and time. You don't need the universe to send you signs tonight. Your body already knows the way to sleep. Let the signs fade into the dark and let the world handle itself. The tribe paradox. Imagine you are a traveler in an ancient wilderness, and you come across a small, glowing campfire surrounded by a group of people. It is freezing outside, and the wolves are howling in the distance. To stay at the fire, you only have to do one thing: agree that the fire is purple, even though you can clearly see it is orange. You agree, you stay warm, you survive. But over time, you don't just pretend the fire is purple. To keep your conscience clean, your mind begins to actually see the purple. This is the power of the tribe. We are social animals first and logical animals second. For 99% of human history, being cast out of the group meant death. Because of this, our brains have evolved to prioritize belonging over accuracy. A smart person will believe something false simply because it is the price of admission to their social circle. They use their intelligence to find the deeper truth in the group's lie. They become the most articulate defenders of the tribe's nonsense, because they are the ones with the most to lose if the fire goes out. This is why facts rarely change people's minds in a heated debate. You aren't arguing about facts, you're arguing about campfires. If a person admits you are right, they aren't just losing an argument, they are potentially losing their friends, their family, their sense of place in the world. Tonight you are not at the campfire. You are in your own room, in your own bed, and the wolves cannot reach you here. You don't need to perform your loyalty to any group. Let the purple fire go. In the dark, there is no tribe. There is only the steady, solitary rhythm of your own heart. You are safe being alone with the truth. You are safe being alone with yourself. The pattern paradox. Imagine you are staring at a television screen filled with nothing but gray, buzzing static. It is pure noise. But as you watch, your mind begins to see a face, then a house, then a message. The longer you look, the more certain you become that the static is trying to tell you something. This is the pattern paradox. The human mind is so good at finding meaning that it often finds it where there is none. We would rather see a ghost in the machine than accept that the machine is simply broken. Smart people are particularly vulnerable to this because their brains are highly tuned to find connections. They can see trends in the stock market that are just random fluctuations. They see messages in a series of coincidences, intent in a partner's accidental comment. Their intelligence makes them too good at their job. They are like a microscope so powerful it begins to see the flaws in the lens rather than the specimen on the slide. This is how many persistent beliefs are born. We take a handful of random events and connect the dots until we have a picture. Then we use our intelligence to defend that picture as if it were a law of nature. We forget that the dots were just dust and the picture was just us. Tonight, let the noise be noise. You don't need to find a pattern in your day or a reason for why things happen the way they did. Imagine the static of the world turning into a soft, gentle white noise like the sound of distant rain or a humming fan. It is peaceful precisely because it has no meaning. There is no face in the static, and there is no message in the dark. Let the patterns go. You are a part of the grand, beautiful noise of the universe. The praise paradox. Think of a musician who writes a simple, catchy song that becomes a global hit. Suddenly, thousands of people are cheering for them. Critics call them the voice of a generation. 5 years later, the musician realizes the song was actually quite shallow and that they've grown past it. But when they try to play something different, the audience boos. The praise they received acted like golden handcuffs. They are now a prisoner of the thing they were once celebrated for. The praise paradox is the way our past successes prevent our future growth. When we are praised for an opinion or a brilliant take, that opinion becomes locked in our minds like cement. We stop looking for new information because we don't want to lose the status that the old information gave us. A smart person will stay trapped in an outdated belief for decades simply because they were once called a genius for holding it. They would rather be a fossil than admit they've changed. We see this in the expert who becomes a celebrity. Once they are known for a specific viewpoint, they can never take it back. They spend the rest of their lives defending their hit song, even if they no longer believe in the lyrics. Praise is a dangerous drug. It makes us feel like we've reached the destination, so we stop walking. We become a statue of our own past brilliance. Tonight, there is no audience. There is no applause. You don't have to live up to the person you were yesterday. Imagine yourself as a blank slate. Every smart thing you've ever said, let it all fade into the background. You are free to change. You are free to be quiet. You are free to be no one at all. The greatest wisdom is not in being right, but in being open. Let the golden handcuffs fall open. You are free to rest. The Conformity Paradox. Imagine walking through a vast, silent cathedral of glass. Every person inside is looking toward the same distant, shimmering light. You look as well, and though your eyes see only a flicker of static, everyone around you, people you admire, people with degrees and titles, is nodding in solemn agreement at the beauty of the image. You feel a cold prickle at the back of your neck. To speak up is to break the silence of the cathedral. To stay quiet is to keep your place in the pews. The conformity paradox reveals the hidden weight that social safety places on a brilliant mind. We like to imagine the genius as a lone figure standing against the wind, but in reality, the smarter a person is, the more they have to lose by being cast out. There is no faster way to fall down a social hierarchy than to be right when everyone else is comfortably wrong. We use our sophisticated vocabulary to find a middle ground where there is none, simply to avoid the friction of being an outlier. Think of a boardroom where a fundamentally flawed idea is being discussed. The smart person sees the flaw instantly, but they also see the faces of their colleagues. They calculate the cost of dissent. Within seconds, their brain has provided them with a nuanced reason to agree. They tell themselves they are being strategic, but beneath the intellectual polish, it is the ancient, primal fear of the dark. As you lie here, let the walls of that cathedral dissolve. In the darkness of sleep, there is no one to please and no hierarchy to climb. You don't need to nod in agreement with anyone tonight. Let your mind drift away from the crowd, away from the pews, and into the vast, quiet space where you don't have to be anything for anyone. Take a deep, slow breath and feel the relief of being a tribe of one. The storytelling paradox. Picture an old man sitting by a dying fire, spinning a tale of heroes and villains, of fate and cosmic justice. As you listen, the world outside, the cold, random, chaotic world, seems to fade away. The story provides a map. It gives the chaos a shape. This is the heart of the storytelling paradox. Our brains are not designed to process raw data. They are designed to consume meaning. We say we want the truth, but what we actually crave is a story that makes sense of our pain or our pride. Smart people are often the most vulnerable to this because they are so good at constructing complex narratives. When a smart person holds a belief that doesn't quite fit reality, a grand theory, a fringe explanation, it is usually because that belief offers a better plot than the boring, messy truth. Reality is often a series of accidents and statistical noise, but a story has intent. A story has a reason. To the intelligent mind, a complex explanation with a good arc feels more truthful than a simple, meaningless fact. We are meaning-making creatures. We look at the stars and see constellations rather than burning gas. We look at our lives and see destiny rather than probability. This impulse allows us to create art and culture, but it is also the glitch that allows us to be deceived by our own imagination. We fall in love with the elegance of the explanation and forget to check if the foundation is made of sand. As you drift towards sleep, imagine the book of your day slowly closing. You don't need to find the point of what happened today. You don't need to tie up the loose ends or find a moral to the story. Let the plot lines go slack. Let the characters fade into the shadows. The world doesn't need to make sense for you to rest within it. Tonight, there is only the quiet, unwritten blankness. The Overconfidence Paradox. Imagine a captain standing on the bridge of a massive vessel, navigating a fog-covered sea. The captain has crossed this ocean 1,000 times. They know every current, every hidden reef, and every star in the sky. Because of this mastery, they stop checking the sonar. They trust their feel for the water. But the sea is not a fixed thing. It shifts. And the very confidence that made them a great captain is exactly what leads them to sail straight into a new, uncharted sandbar. The overconfidence paradox is the occupational hazard of being smart. When we have a track record of being right, we begin to mistake our feeling of certainty for a measurement of reality. Certainty is not a fact. It is a biological signal, a hit of dopamine that tells the brain to stop searching and start acting. For a smart person, this signal is calibrated to go off too early. They have been rewarded for their quick thinking so many times that they begin to trust their gut, even when their gut is reacting to stress or ego. We think that IQ is a shield against error, but it is often just a faster engine on a car with no brakes. The smarter you are, the faster you can race toward a wrong conclusion, and the more evidence you can gather along the way to convince yourself you were right to go there. We forget that the most dangerous moment is not when we are confused, but when we are absolutely sure. Confusion keeps us searching. Certainty keeps us stagnant. Lay down the map tonight. You don't need to be the captain of your life right now. Let the vessel of your mind drift into the fog and realize that you are safe even without control. Certainty is a heavy, metallic weight. Let it sink to the bottom of the ocean. Embrace the light, drifting feeling of not being sure. There is a deep, restorative wisdom in the words, "I don't know." Let them be your lullaby. The Conformation Paradox. Imagine walking into a gallery where every mirror has been slightly curved to reflect only your best features. You move from one mirror to the next, and in every one you look strong, wise, and flawless. You might know, intellectually, that the mirrors are distorted, but after an hour in the gallery, you begin to believe that this is what you actually look like. This is the confirmation paradox in the digital age. We think we are exploring a vast world of information, but we are actually just walking through a hall of mirrors. The more information we have access to, the easier it becomes to find only the data that proves us right. A smart person can find a study, a quote, or a hidden expert to justify any belief, no matter how fringe. We call this doing our own research, but it is often just a sophisticated way of searching for a mirror. We don't want to be challenged. We want to be validated. We use our intelligence to filter out dissenting opinions, not realizing that dissent is often where the truth is hiding. This creates a smarter form of ignorance. Because we have evidence for our mistaken beliefs, we feel intellectually superior to those who disagree. We think they are the ones who haven't read enough, while we sit in our hall of mirrors admiring the distorted reflection of our own brilliance. As you close your eyes, imagine those mirrors slowly cracking and falling away. You don't need the reflections tonight. You don't need to be right or informed or proven. Imagine all the data of the world turning into a soft gray mist. It is quiet. It is neutral. It doesn't care about your opinions. In this mist, there is nothing to prove. There is only the cool, refreshing silence. Let the mirrors go. Just be. The Simplicity Paradox. Imagine a vast, intricate machine with thousands of gears, glowing lights, and humming wires. It looks magnificent, and because it is so complex, you assume it must be performing a miraculous task. Now look at a single, smooth stone sitting on a beach. The stone does nothing but exist. Smart people are often drawn to the machine. They distrust the stone. They think that if an answer is simple, it must be shallow or unrefined. The Simplicity Paradox suggests that we often trust beliefs more when they are wrapped in complexity. If a health theory uses words like cellular optimization and quantum biofeedback, we are more likely to buy the supplement than if someone simply tells us to sleep more and drink water. We confuse difficult to understand with profound. Smart people feel that their intelligence is wasted on simple truths, so they seek out or invent complex systems to explain the world. This is how elaborate ideas take root in sharp minds. By adding enough layers of jargon and theoretical framework, any idea can be made to look like a deep insight. We become so enamored with the architecture of the belief that we forget to check if the roof leaks. We forget that the most powerful truths in the universe, gravity, love, breath, are fundamentally simple. Tonight, let go of the complex machinery of your thoughts. You don't need a framework for rest. You don't need a system for sleep. Return to the simple stone. Return to the simple breath. In and out. The world doesn't need to be explained right now. It just needs to be felt. Let the simplicity lead you into the dark. The Dissonance Paradox. Think of a physical tension in your body, a knot in your shoulder or a tightness in your chest. Now, imagine that this tension is caused by two ideas that cannot live together. You believe you are a fair person, but you just realized you treated someone unfairly. The gap between who you think you are and what you just did creates a psychological pain that is as real as a physical wound. This is cognitive dissonance, and the dissonance paradox is the lengths we will go to stop the pain. A smart person doesn't just admit the mistake and move on. Instead, they use their intelligence to harmonize the two ideas. They invent a complex reason why their unfairness was actually justice, or a necessary lesson. They rewrite the history of the event in their own mind until the tension disappears. The smarter the person, the more sophisticated the rewrite becomes, until they have built a completely fictional world where they are always the hero. We are masters of self-justification. We use our logic to build a bridge over the gaps in our character, but that bridge is a ghost. It doesn't lead anywhere. It just keeps us from looking down at the truth. This is why smart people can be so stubborn. They aren't defending a fact, they are defending the internal harmony of their own soul. As you breathe out, imagine that knot of tension in your mind slowly unraveling. You don't need to justify anything tonight. You can just be a person who made a mistake, a person who is imperfect, a person who is tired. Let the two conflicting ideas sit there in the dark without trying to fix them. You will find that you can survive the dissonance. You don't need the lie to feel at peace. Let the harmony come from acceptance. The conspiracy paradox. Imagine you are walking through a forest and you see a series of fallen trees. A simple mind might say the wind blew them down, but a smart, pattern-seeking mind looks closer. They see the way the branches overlap. They notice the specific angles of the trunks. They begin to believe that these trees didn't fall, they were placed there. They begin to look for the invisible hand that moved them. This is the conspiracy paradox. It is often easier for a brilliant mind to believe in a secret, deliberate plan than to believe that no one is in control at all. There is a strange, dark comfort in the idea of a puppeteer. If a secret group is running the world, then the world is a machine that can be understood, even if it is frightening. But if the world is truly random, if economies crash and viruses spread because of a million tiny accidental collisions, then we are truly vulnerable. A smart person will use their intelligence to connect dots that aren't there, building a grand theory out of coincidence, because it makes them feel like an insider. It turns the terror of chaos into the excitement of a mystery. The smarter the person, the more sophisticated the conspiracy becomes. They use their ability to synthesize information to filter out anything that looks like an accident. But beneath all the research and the diagrams, it is just the ancient, human fear of being a leaf in the wind. As you settle into sleep, imagine the world not as a controlled machine but as a vast, wild ocean. It is unpredictable, chaotic, and beyond any one person's control. You don't need to find the puppeteer tonight. Let the dots remain unconnected. Feel the relief of realizing you don't have to be an insider. You can just be a traveler floating on the surface of a deep and mysterious reality. The wind is just the wind. The leaves are just leaves. The Afterlife Justice Paradox. Imagine a grand, celestial courtroom with a clerk who never sleeps, recording every slight, every kindness, and every injustice in a heavy, leather-bound ledger. We live in a world where the villains often die in silk sheets, and the saints suffer in silence. To a logical mind, this is a glitch in the cosmic code. The Afterlife Justice Paradox reveals that the more unfair the world appears, the more a clever mind is drawn to beliefs that promise a final balancing of the scales. Smart people are often the most susceptible to this because they have a deep, intellectual need for order. They see the chaos of reality and try to impose a moral law over it. They create intricate systems to explain why the arc of the universe bends toward justice. They want to believe there is a hidden purpose behind every tragedy. This belief isn't a lack of intelligence. It is a desperate search for a meaningful conclusion to a messy story. We find comfort in the idea of a cosmic ledger because it means our suffering isn't random. It turns our pain into an investment. But this belief can trap us. It keeps us waiting for a justice that may never come, and it blinds us to the unpolished beauty of the world as it actually is. Tonight, let the scales be unbalanced. You don't need to fix the world's injustices from your bed. There is no judgment waiting for you in the shadows. There is no tally being kept of your failures or your triumphs. There is only the quiet air and the safety of the dark. Let the grand plan go. You are allowed to exist in an imperfect world and still find peace. The Genius Cult Paradox. Imagine standing at the foot of a mountain so high its peak is hidden in the clouds. You have been told that a great teacher lives at the top, someone who sees further and knows more than any ordinary human. Because you are smart, you want to be near that brilliance. You begin to follow them, and when they do something that seems cruel or strange or nonsensical, you don't question it. Instead, you think, I'm just not high enough on the mountain to understand their reasons yet. The Genius Cult Paradox is the way we use our own intelligence to excuse the dangerous ideas of someone we admire. We assume that if someone is a genius in one area, physics, technology, or art, they must be a genius in all areas. We stop using our own critical thinking and start using our mental energy to decode the leader's flaws as if they were hidden wisdom. We become the sophisticated defenders of a guru's nonsense, convincing ourselves that their madness is just a higher form of sanity. This is a trap for the intellectual because it offers the reward of feeling like a chosen disciple. We think we are part of an elite group that gets it, while the rest of the world is too basic to understand. We use our intelligence to build a pedestal, and once someone is on it, we refuse to see them as a human being. Tonight, bring everyone down from the mountain. In the darkness, there are no gurus, no geniuses, no higher beings. There are only people, fragile, tired, and searching for the same rest that you are. Trust the authority of your own silence. You are your own highest mountain. Let the leaders and the legends fade into the mist. The Lone Prophet Paradox. Imagine a man standing in the center of a city, shouting a warning that no one will listen to. He is mocked, ignored, and cast out. We love this story. We romanticize the lone prophet who sees what others cannot. Because of this, when a smart person finds that everyone disagrees with them, they don't take it as a sign that they might be wrong. Instead, they take it as a sign that they are a visionary. They think, the more people laugh at me, the more likely I am to be the next Galileo. The Lone Prophet Paradox reveals how we turn our isolation into a badge of honor. A smart person can spend a lifetime defending a fringe theory simply because the friction of being a martyr for the truth feels so meaningful. They stop listening to feedback and start seeking out rejection because rejection proves they are onto something big. But there is a difference between being a visionary and being mistaken. Isolation doesn't guarantee truth. Sometimes, it just guarantees loneliness. We use the Galileo story to protect ourselves from the pain of being corrected. Our intelligence becomes the walls of our own prison. Tonight, you don't have to be a prophet. You don't have to be a visionary or a martyr. You can just be a part of the world. Imagine the city of people and imagine yourself walking among them, not as a teacher or a critic, but as a brother, a sister, a friend. Let the weight of being right fall away. In the quiet of the night, there is only the shared, peaceful experience of being alive. Let the desert bloom into a garden of rest. The Memory Paradox. Imagine you are sitting in a dark room, watching an old film strip of your life. The images are flickering, a bit grainy, but you feel certain you remember exactly what happened. What you don't see, however, is the editor in the projection booth. Every time that film is played, the editor cuts a few frames, splices in a new reaction, and tapes over the parts that make you look bad. By the time you've watched the memory 100 times, it is a completely different movie. The memory paradox is the realization that the memories we are most certain of are often the ones we have edited the most. Every time we recall an event, we aren't playing a file, we are reconstructing a scene. A smart person will use their vivid imagination to fill in the gaps with details that should have been there. They will hold a firm belief about their past, a grievance that didn't happen, or a triumph they didn't quite earn, simply because their brain has polished the memory until it feels like a physical truth. We use our intelligence to narrate our history so that we are always the protagonist and never the villain or the fool. This is why two smart people can remember the same conversation in two completely different ways and both be 100% certain they are right. They aren't lying. They are just watching different edits of the same film. As you drift off, let the film strip stop. You don't need to defend your version of history. Imagine all those memories, the good, the bad, the edited, as soft, gray dust motes floating in a sunbeam. They are light. They are weightless. They have no power over you now. The past is a ghost, and the only real thing is the feel of the pillow and the rhythm of your breath. The perception paradox. Imagine looking at a beautiful garden through a window of stained glass. The red glass makes the lilies look like rubies. The blue glass turns the grass into a deep midnight sea. You know intellectually that the glass is colored, but after a few minutes you forget. You start to believe the world truly looks like that. This is the perception paradox. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we expect it to be. Our brain is not a camera. It is a prediction engine that builds a model of the world before we even open our eyes. A smart person will often hold a mistaken belief because their stained glass, their education, their biases, their fears, is so thick that it changes the shape of the facts. They can look at the same data set as someone else and see a crisis while the other person sees an opportunity. They aren't seeing different things. They are making different guesses. And because they are smart, they trust their guesses more than their senses. We spend our lives cleaning the glass, trying to see clearly, but we forget that the glass is our mind. We cannot step outside of it. This is why common sense is so rare. We are all trapped in our own private versions of reality. We use our intelligence to justify the colors we see, rather than questioning the window we are looking through. As you lie in the dark, notice how your vision of the world begins to change. Without the light, the shapes disappear. The labels of good and bad, right and wrong begin to fade. In the darkness, there is no window. There is only the vast, open space of your own awareness. You are not the observer. You are the experience itself. Let the world be whatever it is, and let yourself be still within it. The exception paradox. Imagine a city where every citizen agrees that the laws are wise and necessary. They agree that taxes should be paid, that honesty is required, and that rules exist for the good of all. But as you walk through the city, you notice that every single person believes they are the one special case who shouldn't have to follow them today. I'm in a hurry. I've worked harder than most. My situation is unique. This is the exception paradox. We believe in rules for the world, but we believe in context for ourselves. Smart people are the masters of this. Their intelligence allows them to create such a sophisticated, multi-layered special case for their own behavior that they never have to feel like a hypocrite. They can argue passionately for principles they quietly exempt themselves from. They don't see themselves as breaking the rules. They see themselves as navigating a complex exception that only someone with their intellect could truly understand. We use our minds to lawyer our way out of our own values. We think, the rule is for people who don't understand the nuances like I do. This is how morally questionable choices take root in sharp minds. We fall in love with our own uniqueness and forget that we are made of the same clay as everyone else. As you lie in the honesty of the dark, let the pedestal crumble. You don't need to be an exception tonight. There is a profound relief in being just like everyone else. You are one of millions of humans, currently breathing, currently tired, currently seeking rest. Let the special cases go. You are a part of the whole, and in that belonging there is a deep and quiet safety. The authority paradox. Imagine you are lost in a strange, ancient city at night. You see a man standing under a street lamp, wearing an expensive suit and looking perfectly confident. You ask him for directions, and he points down a dark alleyway. You follow him, not because you know he is right, but because he looks like he knows he is right. This is the authority paradox. We often confuse the sound of confidence with the presence of truth. We outsource our thinking to anyone who looks like they've already done the work. Smart people are particularly prone to this because they have a deep respect for expertise. They assume that if someone has a degree from a prestigious university, or a million followers, or a confident take on a complex subject, they must be right. They stop checking the facts and start checking the credentials. They forget that experts are just people who are also susceptible to their own biases and blind spots. We think we are being informed when we follow an authority, but often we are just being compliant. We use our intelligence to decode the expert's message rather than questioning the message itself. We become the smart followers of confident errors. Tonight, you don't need to listen to any authorities. In the darkness, there are no suits, no degrees, and no status. There is only you. You are the only authority on how you feel in this moment. Listen to the quiet expert of your own body. It is telling you that the day is over and that the time for thinking is done. Trust your own silence. You are safe in your own hands. The Identity Paradox. Imagine you are a sculptor and for years you have been carving a statue out of a single massive block of marble. You call the statue Who I Am. Every choice you make, every belief you hold is a chip of the chisel. But after 20 years, you realize that you have carved yourself into a corner. The statue is beautiful, but it is heavy, and it cannot move. You want to change your mind about something, but the belief is no longer a choice. It is now a part of the marble of your identity. To change your mind would be to break the statue. The identity paradox is the way our beliefs slowly transform from tools we use into who we are. When you are the person who believes X, then a challenge to X is no longer an intellectual debate. It is an attack on your soul. Smart people defend beliefs they have long outgrown simply because those beliefs have become part of their self-image. They would rather defend a lie than suffer the amputation of a part of their identity. We think that changing our mind is a sign of weakness rather than a sign of growth. We use our intelligence to protect the statue rather than realizing that we are the sculptor, not the stone. As you prepare for sleep, imagine the marble of your identity turning into something soft and fluid like water or light. You don't need to be consistent with who you were 10 years ago or even 10 minutes ago. You are not a statue, you are a process. You are allowed to let go of the parts of yourself that no longer serve you. Let the sculpture dissolve. In the darkness, you have no shape. You are free to be anyone or no one at all. The Debate Paradox. Imagine two knights in full armor clashing their swords in a brightly lit arena. Each knight's goal is not to find the truth. Their goal is to knock the other knight off their horse. This is the debate paradox. The more we practice winning arguments, the harder it becomes to use thinking as a way to learn. In a debate, the truth is just a weapon you use to win. If the truth doesn't help you win, you throw it away and pick up a better-looking one. Smart people are often argumentative athletes. They have spent their lives being rewarded for their quick wit and their ability to find the flaw in someone else's logic. But this skill has a backfire. They become so good at spotting the splinter in their neighbor's eye that they become completely blind to the log in their own. They use their intelligence to protect their score, rather than updating their map. They win the argument, but they remain lost. We forget that the goal of thinking is to get closer to reality, not to defeat another person. We turn every conversation into a match, and in doing so, we close the doors to any new information that might make us lose. Tonight, there is no one to argue with. There is no arena and there are no horses. You can put down your rhetorical weapons. You don't need to have a rebuttal for life. The most profound truths are often found in the silence after the debate ends. Let the clash of swords fade into the distance. In the stillness, the truth doesn't need to be won. It just needs to be heard. The Independence Paradox. Imagine you are a lone explorer in a vast, snow-covered landscape. You pride yourself on being the author of your own path. You believe you are thinking for yourself. But as you look back at your tracks, you notice that you have been following a set of old, deep ruts in the snow that were made by travelers who came before you. You didn't choose the path chose you. This is the Independence Paradox. We pride ourselves on originality, yet many of our strongest beliefs were absorbed from the culture, the parents, and the idols we admired before we were old enough to question them. We are mirrors who think we are lamps. A smart person will give you a 10-minute lecture on why they hold a certain political or philosophical view, believing they reached it through pure, independent logic. But if they had been born in a different country or a different century, they would be using that same logic to defend a completely different view. Our intelligence is often just the paint we use to decorate the house that someone else built for us. We are a collection of influences, stories, and borrowed convictions. This isn't a failure, it's a part of being a social animal, but the illusion we carry is that we are self-made thinkers. As you fall asleep, realize that you don't have to own all your thoughts tonight. You can let your beliefs belong to the world. You are a unique expression of a million-year-old process. Let the pressure to be an independent genius fade away. You are a leaf on a very old tree, and the tree knows how to rest. The partial knowledge paradox. Imagine you are an expert at playing chess. You know every move, every strategy, and you have won 100 tournaments. One day, someone sits you down in front of a piano and asks you to play. Because you are a master of chess, a part of you feels like you should be a master of the piano too. But you aren't playing music. You're just hitting the keys according to the rules of chess. This is the partial knowledge paradox. Knowing a great deal in one area makes us feel qualified to speak with authority on everything else. Smart people often stumble in fields outside their own because they apply the logic of their home field to a reality that doesn't follow those rules. An engineer might try to solve a social problem with efficiency, or a lawyer might try to solve a health problem with evidence, without realizing they are blind in this new room. They don't notice they have crossed a border. We confuse intelligence with omniscience. We use our brilliance to build a bridge into a foreign land, but we forget to check if the bridge is made of the right material. We believe our intuition is better than an amateur's, even when we are the amateur. Tonight, embrace the beginner's mind. It is okay to not know how the piano works. It is okay to be confused by the foreign languages of the world. There is a wonderful lightness in admitting, I don't know. Let that be your mantra as you drift off. I don't know why the world is the way it is. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. And I am at peace. You just need to be a student of rest. The human mind paradox. We have reached the quiet center of our journey. The human mind paradox is this. The very abilities that let us understand the world, our pattern seeing, our storytelling, our need for social safety, are the same abilities that guarantee we will sometimes believe things that aren't true. Our bugs are also our features. We hold mistaken beliefs because we are human, not because we are failing to be human. Our brain was not designed to calculate the cold truth of a vacuum. It was designed to help us survive in a wild, social, and dangerous world. It prioritizes speed over accuracy, belonging over logic, and story over data. A smart mind is a beautiful, complex, slightly imperfect machine. It is like a high-end watch that sometimes tells the time in the wrong time zone, but does so with incredible precision. We can learn to work with these tendencies, but we can never fully eliminate them. To be human is to be a little bit lost in the hall of mirrors, to see faces in the static and heroes in the ledger. This isn't stupidity, it is the human condition. Give yourself permission to be a bit imperfect tonight. You have done a great deal of thinking today. You have tried to be logical and rational and right. It is time to stop. The paradoxes will still be there tomorrow. For now, there is only the soft, dark reality of the now. Your brain has done its job. Let it rest. The curiosity paradox. Think of a child standing at the edge of a tide pool, completely transfixed by a small crab moving sideways through the water. The child has no theory about the crab. They have no conclusion to defend, no framework to protect. They are simply watching, open and alive to whatever comes next. Now think of the very smart adult standing beside them who glances at the pool and says, "Oh yes, a shore crab," and moves on. They have identified the thing, and in identifying it, they have stopped seeing it. This is the curiosity paradox. The more you know about something, the harder it becomes to wonder about it. Intelligence accumulates answers, and answers over time become walls. We mistake the label for the thing itself. We mistake familiarity for understanding. A smart person can spend a lifetime surrounded by genuine mystery. In their relationships, in their own mind, in the world outside their window, and never once feel the pull of a real question, because they already have a filing cabinet full of satisfying ones. We tend to think of curiosity as the engine of intelligence, but curiosity requires a specific kind of not knowing, a willingness to sit with a question long enough for it to become genuinely uncomfortable. Smart people are often too efficient for that. They arrive at a good enough answer quickly, and their mind moves on, satisfied. They never learn that the most interesting questions are the ones that resist a quick answer. They never discover that the crab, watched long enough, will do something that no field guide has ever described. As you settle into the quiet now, let the answers go first. What would it feel like to lie here and not know something? Not to be confused, not to be anxious, but to be genuinely, openly curious about what tomorrow is made of, about what the darkness around you actually is, about what it means to be a conscious thing breathing slowly in the middle of an enormous and mostly unexplained universe. You don't need to answer that. Just let the question be warm and open and alive. Rest in the asking. Sleep begins there, in the place before the answer arrives. The peace with error paradox. We reach the final room in our journey through the mind. It is unsettling to realize that no matter how high our IQ, we will always carry some false beliefs. The world is too big and we are too small. We are like the ship of Theseus, constantly replacing our parts, never quite the same, yet always trying to maintain the same name. The peace with error paradox suggests that the moment you accept that you will always be at least a little bit wrong is the moment your thinking becomes truly clear. When you stop fighting the invasive plants of doubt in your inner garden, you create a safe space for genuine growth. True stability isn't the absence of error. It's the ability to move gracefully with the realization of it. It is the tree that bends in the storm. We spend so much energy trying to be invulnerable to mistakes, but vulnerability is where the learning happens. When we admit we are wrong, the armor of the self-image falls away, and we can actually see the world for the first time. There is a profound, quiet joy in being a flawed learner rather than a perfect master. As you let go of this day, notice how rest comes not through effort but through release. You don't need to solve the paradoxes of the mind tonight. You only need to recognize the simple miracle of a mind that can rest. You don't need to be correct to be worthy. You don't need to be logical to be at peace. The empathy paradox. Imagine you are a cartographer, tasked with mapping a vibrant, bustling city you have never visited. You have access to every data point, the traffic patterns, the blueprints of the buildings, the history of every street name. You build a model so perfect, so intricate, that you feel you know the city better than the people who live there. But when you finally step onto the pavement, you realize you can't feel the warmth of the sun on a specific corner, or the peculiar, comforting scent of a local bakery. Your map is perfect, but it is cold. The empathy paradox is the trap of the analytical mind. When a smart person tries to understand someone they love, they often stop listening and start modeling. They break the other person down into a series of psychological traits, past traumas, and predictable reactions. They believe that by solving the person like a puzzle, they are being empathetic. But the more you analyze a person, the further you move from their actual presence. You are interacting with your theory of them, rather than the living, breathing human being sitting across from you. Intelligence can act as a barrier to intimacy. We use our logic to debug our partners or friends, offering solutions when they are looking for connection. Empathy is not a calculation. It is a resonance. It is the ability to sit in the dark with someone without trying to turn the lights on. A smart person often fears this silence because they cannot control it with their intellect. As you drift towards sleep, let your models of the people in your life dissolve. You don't need to understand them tonight. you love not as puzzles to be solved, but as landscapes to be experienced. Let the data points fade away. In the quiet of the night, there is only the soft, shared reality of existence. Breathe out the need to analyze and breathe in the simple, quiet grace of being a witness. The Humility Paradox. Picture a man standing in a town square, wearing the simplest, most tattered rags he can find. He bows low to everyone he meets, speaks in a whisper, and constantly points out his own flaws. He looks like the embodiment of humility. But as he bows, he is glancing out of the corner of his eye to see who is watching. He is secretly proud of how unproud he is. He has turned humility into a performance, a new way to be superior to those who are arrogant enough to be normal. The humility paradox reveals that for a smart person, even self-effacement can be a trap for the ego. We know, intellectually, that pride is a flaw, so we use our intelligence to hack humility. We practice performed humility, the humble brag, the strategic apology, the public admission of a small mistake to hide a larger one. It is a sophisticated form of vanity that is almost impossible to detect because it wears the clothes of its opposite. It is the ego playing dead, so it won't be caught. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. But a smart mind is a self-monitoring mind. It is constantly checking its own performance, making sure it is perceived correctly. We use our brilliance to curate a humble identity, not realizing that the very act of curation is an act of pride. Tonight, let go of the need to be anything at all. In the darkness, there is no audience to perform for. Imagine yourself as a single leaf in a vast forest. The leaf does not try to be humble, it simply exists, turns toward the light, and eventually falls. It has no reputation to maintain. Let your identity fall away like that leaf. You are safe here in the anonymity of the dark. Just rest in the silence where the ego finally sleeps. The Control Paradox. Imagine you are standing in a lighthouse during a massive midnight storm. The waves are crashing against the stone, and the wind is howling through the glass. You believe that if you can just understand the physics of the water, if you can calculate the force of the wind and the depth of the tide, you will be safe. You use your mind to build a fortress of logic against the chaos. But when a wave finally breaks the glass, you realize that all your understanding cannot stop the water from being cold or the salt from stinging your eyes. The control paradox is the belief that we can think our way out of the fundamental pains of being human, especially grief. When we lose something, a job, a dream, a person, the smart mind goes into overdrive. We analyze the stages of grief. We try to rationalize the loss. We think that if we can find the lesson or the reason, we can control the pain. But grief is not a problem to be solved. It is a process to be endured. Logic is a lighthouse, but it is not the sea. Intelligence often makes us brittle. We think that because we are rational, we shouldn't feel irrational things like despair or overwhelming sadness. We use our minds to suppress our hearts, telling ourselves we should be over it by now. The harder we try to manage our emotions with our intellect, the more explosive they become when they finally break through. We are like architects trying to build a building that never moves, forgetting that the only way to survive an earthquake is to learn how to sway. As you lie in the stillness, let the lighthouse go dark. You don't need to solve your pain tonight. Imagine the emotions of your day as waves in a deep, dark ocean. You don't need to control them, you just need to float. There is a profound peace in realizing that your mind is not in charge of the tide. You are safe in the water, even when you don't have the answers. Let the control dissolve and let the rest begin. The Forgiveness Paradox. Imagine you are a librarian in a vast underground archive. Your only job is to maintain a single, massive file cabinet labeled the case against them. Every time someone hurts you, you meticulously document the evidence. You write down the exact words they used, the look in their eyes, and the long-term consequences of their actions. Because you are smart, your case is airtight. It is a masterpiece of logic and justification. You hold onto this file because you believe it protects you, not realizing that you are the only one trapped in the basement with it. The forgiveness paradox suggests that intelligent people often find it the hardest to forgive because they are so good at building a rational case for resentment. An average person might stay angry for a while and then forget, but a smart person remembers. They connect this injury to 3 others from 5 years ago. They use their intelligence to turn a simple hurt into a complex, permanent truth. They mistake their memory for justice and their grudge for integrity. We think that by holding onto the case, we are holding the other person accountable. But in reality, we are just carrying a heavy bag of stones while the other person is miles away, perhaps not even thinking of us. Resentment is a high IQ trap. It feels like critical thinking, but it is actually emotional stagnation. Tonight, imagine yourself walking out of that archive. Leave the case on the desk. You don't need to win the argument anymore. Forgiveness isn't about saying the other person was right. It's about realizing that carrying the file is making you tired. Imagine those heavy documents turning into ash and blowing away in a cool night breeze. Your mind is finally light. Your basement is finally empty. You are free to sleep, not because the world is fair, but because you are tired of being the judge. The progress paradox. Imagine standing at the very top of a mountain that has been built, stone by stone, over thousands of years. You look down at the people below you, the ones on the lower slopes, with a sense of pity. You think, they lived in such darkness. They didn't have the maps I have. You believe you are at the end of history, the most enlightened version of humanity that has ever existed. But you forget that the mountain is still being built, and one day, someone will stand where you are and look at you with that same pity. The progress paradox is the temporal hubris of the modern mind. Every generation, especially the most educated ones, believes they have finally escaped the superstitions of the past. We use our intelligence to look back at history as a series of errors that we have finally corrected. We think that because we have better technology, we have better souls. This belief makes us blind to our own mistaken ideas. We are so convinced of our progress that we stop questioning the assumptions of our own era. This creates a strange kind of loneliness. By disconnecting ourselves from the ignorant past, we lose the ancient wisdom that was hard-won by our ancestors. We trade deep, slow truths for fast, shallow information. We think we are moving forward, but often we are just moving away from the earth, away from the body, and away from the simple rhythms of life. As you drift toward sleep, let the mountain of progress crumble. You don't need to be enlightened tonight. Imagine yourself as a human being from any century sitting by a fire, looking at the same moon, breathing the same air. You are part of a long, ancient line of sleepers. The worries of your era are just ripples on a very deep lake. Let them fade. You are not at the end of anything. You are just in the middle of a long, beautiful story. Rest in the timelessness of the night. The questions paradox. Imagine you are looking at a magnificent ancient mosaic on the floor of a palace. Thousands of tiny, colored tiles come together to form a perfect image of the cosmos. But in the very center, there is a small, dark hole where a tile is missing. A simple person might look at the hole and wonder what was there. But a smart person is terrified of the hole. To them, the hole is a gap in knowledge, a sign of failure. They spend their life trying to manufacture a tile to fit the hole, or worse, they hide it under a rug so no one knows it exists. The questions paradox reveals that the more we know, the more we fear what we don't know. For an intelligent person, I don't know feels like a confession of weakness. We have been rewarded our whole lives for having the answers. Consequently, we start to avoid the big, uncomfortable questions that have no easy answers, questions about meaning, mortality, and love. We would rather focus on the tiles we have than face the gap in the center. This is how smart people become stagnant. We stop asking why and start asking how. We focus on the mechanics of life because they are safe and solvable. But the gap, the mystery, is where the growth is. When we are afraid of questions, we are afraid of life itself. We use our intelligence to build a wall around our current knowledge, protecting us from the cold wind of the unknown. Tonight, let yourself look at the gap. You don't need to fill it. Imagine the I don't know not as a failure, but as a vast, cool, inviting space A room with the windows open. Let the questions hang in the air like stars, beautiful, distant, and perfectly silent. There is a deep rest in the not knowing. Let the tiles go and sink into the mystery of the dark. The Silence Paradox. Imagine you are standing in a vast, empty canyon. You shout your name, and for a few seconds the air is filled with your own voice, bouncing off the stone walls, growing louder and more distorted. You feel powerful, as if you are filling the emptiness with your presence. But as the echoes fade, a deep, heavy silence returns. To a smart person, this silence often feels like a threat. It feels like emptiness or nothingness. We have been trained to believe that a mind that isn't producing, isn't making noise, is a mind that is failing. The Silence Paradox reveals our deep-seated mistake. We confuse noise with intelligence and quiet with a lack of thought. In our modern world, the smartest person in the room is often the one talking the most, the one with the quickest comeback, the one with the most takes. We use our intelligence to manufacture a constant stream of internal and external chatter, convinced that if we stop thinking for even a second, we will disappear. But the most profound insights don't come from the noise. They emerge from the silence. A smart mind that cannot be quiet is like a radio stuck between stations, lots of static, but no clear signal. We are so busy broadcasting our brilliance that we forget how to receive the world. We mistake a busy mind for a productive one, not realizing that a cluttered room has no space for a guest. Tonight, let the echoes in the canyon die down. You don't need to fill the space with words or brilliant ideas. Imagine the silence not as a vacuum, but as a cool, clear pool of water. It isn't empty. It is full of potential. Let the noise of your intelligence settle like sediment at the bottom. In the quiet of the night, your value isn't measured by your output. Rest in the silence and realize that the most intelligent thing you can do right now is to say absolutely nothing. The Success Paradox. Imagine you are a mountain climber who has just reached the highest peak in the world. The view is breathtaking, and the feeling of triumph is like a drug. You want to stay there forever. But as you look around, you realize that the very equipment and the very path you used to get here are now useless for getting you anywhere else. To find a new mountain, you have to go all the way back down to the bottom, into the dirt and the uncertainty. And that is exactly what a successful person is most afraid to do. The success paradox is the way our past wins make us less likely to take the risks that created them in the first place. When you are smart and successful, you have a reputation to protect. This makes you play it safe. You start making smart choices, incremental, cautious, defensible choices, rather than the bold leaps of faith that actually lead to breakthroughs. You become a prisoner of your own track record. We see this in the expert who refuses to learn a new skill because they are afraid of looking like a beginner. Their intelligence becomes a cage. They would rather be a master of a dying field than a novice in a growing one. They use their logic to explain why the new way is wrong, when in reality, they are just afraid of the fall back to the bottom of the mountain. As you lie in the dark, let go of your trophies. You don't need to be a success tonight. Imagine yourself back at the base of the mountain with nothing but the clothes on your back and a sense of curiosity. There is a wonderful freedom in having nothing to lose. You don't need to protect your reputation while you sleep. Tonight, you are not a winner or a loser. You are just a traveler resting before the next climb. The Comparison Paradox. Imagine you are a star in the night sky. You are bright, beautiful, and you burn with your own unique fire. But instead of simply shining, you spend your time looking at the other stars. You see one that is slightly bluer, another that is slightly larger, and another that belongs to a more famous constellation. Because you are a smart star, you can calculate the exact distance between your brightness and theirs. You use your intelligence to turn the vast, beautiful galaxy into a giant leaderboard, and suddenly, your own light feels like a failure. The comparison paradox is the curse of the high-functioning mind. The smarter you are, the better you are at finding people to feel inferior to. You don't just compare your bank account. You compare your impact, your originality, your depth. You use your analytical skills to dissect your own life and find the gaps where someone else is doing better. You turn your intelligence into a weapon against your own happiness. We think that by comparing ourselves, we are motivating ourselves to improve, but in reality, we are just poisoning our own well. We forget that a star's job is not to be better than the star next to it. Its job is simply to shine. We use our brilliance to build a hierarchy that doesn't exist in nature. We are so busy looking up at the people we admire that we forget to look in at the miracle of our own existence. Tonight, the leaderboard is closed. In the darkness, there are no constellations and no rankings. You don't need to be more than anyone else to be enough. Imagine your life not as a race to be won, but as a light to be felt. You are a unique expression of the universe, and there is no scale that can measure your worth. Let the comparison fade away like a distant satellite. You are here, you are bright, and you are at peace. The urgency paradox. Imagine you are a high-speed train built for maximum efficiency. You fly across the landscape, your engines humming, your schedule perfect. But even when you pull into the station for the night, your engines are still revving. You feel like you should be moving. You look at the quiet, still tracks and feel a sense of guilt. You manufacture a fake destination just so you have a reason to keep the steam up. You have forgotten how to be a train at rest. The urgency paradox is the hallmark of the optimized mind. We have been taught that busyness is a sign of importance and that rest is just a waste of time. Even when we are supposed to be relaxing, we are optimizing our leisure, reading the right books, listening to the right podcasts, tracking our sleep quality. We use our intelligence to manufacture a sense of urgency even when there is none. We are terrified of stillness because in the stillness, we might have to face our own thoughts without a task to distract us. This manufactured urgency is a form of smart avoidance. We stay busy so we don't have to feel. We keep the engine revving so we don't have to hear the silence. We think we are being productive, but we are actually just being anxious. We have lost the ability to simply be without ado. We have turned our lives into a series of deadlines, and we have forgotten that the most important parts of life, love, wonder, and rest, have no schedule. Tonight the tracks are empty. There is no destination and there is no on-time arrival. You don't need to be productive in your sleep. Imagine your internal engine slowly cooling down. The steam is fatting, the gears are coming to a halt. There is no hurry in the dark. You are allowed to be useless for the next 8 hours. Let the urgency dissolve into the pillow. You are not a machine. You are a living being, and living beings need the quiet. The meaning paradox. Imagine you are walking through a desert and you find a pile of stones. They are just stones, scattered by the wind. But because you are a meaning maker, you start to see a shape in them. You think they are a marker or a sign. You begin to tell yourself a story about why those stones are there and what they mean for your journey. This story makes the heat of the desert feel more bearable. It gives your struggle a point. You are so in love with the story that you forget that at the end of the day, they are just stones. The meaning paradox is the way we assign purpose to our suffering to make it tolerable. When we go through a hard time, we say everything happens for a reason or this is making me stronger. This is a smart survival mechanism. It protects us from the terrifying possibility that some pain is just random, senseless, and without lesson. We use our intelligence to weave a moral into our tragedies, not because the moral is objectively there, but because the alternative, a neutral universe, is too much to bear. While this storytelling helps us survive, it can also keep us trapped. We stay in painful situations because we have assigned them a deep meaning. We endure unnecessary hardship because we have convinced ourselves it is a test. We use our brilliance to justify our misery, rather than taking the simple steps to change it. We fall in love with the lesson and forget to solve the problem. Tonight, let the meaning rest. You don't need to have a reason for everything that happened today. You don't need to find a moral in your struggles. Imagine your life not as a script being written by a cosmic author, but as a beautiful, raw, and sometimes chaotic experience. It doesn't need to mean anything to be valuable. In the dark, the stones are just stones, and the wind is just the wind. There is a deep peace in letting go of the why and simply accepting the is. The future paradox. Imagine you are a filmmaker, sitting in a dark editing suite with thousands of monitors. On each screen, a different version of your future is playing out. In one, you are triumphant. In another, you are failing. In a third, you are wandering a path you don't recognize. Because you are smart, you spend all your time adjusting the lighting on these screens, editing the dialogue, and trying to direct the scenes that haven't happened yet. You are so busy living in these glowing boxes that you don't realize the actual room you are sitting in is quiet, warm, and real. The future paradox is the trap of the simulating mind. Intelligent people often spend more time living in a hypothetical tomorrow than they do in the actual now. We use our cognitive power to run endless simulations, worrying about what if or planning for when. We believe that by thinking about the future, we are controlling it. But the more we simulate the future, the more we miss the life we are currently having. We treat the present moment as a mere waiting room for the main event that is always just over the horizon. This creates a state of perpetual anxiety. We are never where our feet are. We are always 3 steps ahead, tripping over the present because we are looking at the destination. We think we are being prepared, but we are actually just being absent. We use our intelligence to build a ghost world of expectations and fears, and then we wonder why the real world feels so thin and unsatisfying. Tonight, turn off the monitors. The editing suite of your mind is closed for the night. You don't need to simulate a single second of tomorrow. Imagine those glowing screens fading to black one by one. There is only the weight of your body, the coolness of the sheets, and the slow, steady rhythm of your breathing. The future will arrive exactly when it is supposed to, whether you think about it or not. For now, let the tomorrow go and simply occupy the now. The regret paradox. Imagine you are a detective, called to the scene of a crime that happened 10 years ago. You look at the old photographs, the faded statements, and the blurry security footage. You pace the room thinking, if I had just turned left instead of right, if I had just said this instead of that. Because you are smart, you can see exactly where the mistake was made. You spend hours replaying the what could have been, convinced that if you can just understand the error deeply enough, you can somehow undo the damage. But no matter how brilliant your detective work is, the clock on the wall never ticks backward. The regret paradox is the way we use our intelligence to torture ourselves with the past. We treat our memories as drafts that can be edited, rather than records that are finished. We believe that by replaying a past decision, an old relationship, a missed career move, a hurtful word, we are learning or resolving it. But thinking harder about the past doesn't change it. It only drains the energy you need for the present. We use our logic to build an airtight case for why we should have known better, forgetting that the person we were back then didn't have the wisdom we have now. Regret is a smart person's shadow. We think that by feeling bad, we are paying a debt. But the debt is an illusion. We are using our brilliance to haunt our own lives. We stay in the crime scene of the past because it feels more important than the quiet peace of today. Tonight, close the case file. The detective is off duty. You don't need to solve your past mistakes. Imagine those old memories as black and white photos drifting away into a deep, dark drawer. They have no power in this room. You are not the person you were then. You are the person who is resting now. Let the could-have-beens dissolve into the shadows. The past is a country you no longer live in. Let yourself be at home in the quiet of tonight. The reputation paradox. Imagine you are an actor on a grand stage, performing for a theater filled with shadows. You wear a mask of integrity, a robe of kindness, and you speak lines of wisdom. The shadows applaud, and you feel a sense of accomplishment. But after the show, when you go back to your dressing room and take off the mask, you realize you haven't actually practiced any of those values in your real life. You have been so busy performing your goodness that you forgot to actually be good. The reputation paradox is the gap between our public performance and our private practice. In the age of digital mirrors, we are all reputation managers. We use our intelligence to curate our values, to post the right things, and to signal the right beliefs. We think that because we talk about a value, we possess it. But values are not thoughts, they are actions. A smart person can easily mistake their intellectual agreement with a virtue for the actual practice of it. We perform our values publicly more than we practice them privately because performance brings immediate rewards, while practice is quiet and difficult. This creates a hollow sense of self. We feel like a fraud because we are more concerned with how we are seen than how we are. We use our brilliance to bridge the gap with excuses, convincing ourselves that our intentions are what count. But in the quiet of the night, the performance ends. Tonight, let the mask fall. You don't need to be a good person or a wise person while you sleep. You don't need to manage anyone's perception of you. In the darkness, there is no one to impress. There is only the honest, unadorned reality of who you are. Imagine the stage lights going out and the theater becoming silent. You are safe in the dressing room of the dark. Let the reputation go and let the real, quiet part of you finally take its rest. The Vulnerability Paradox. Imagine a fortress built on the edge of a cliff, thick walls, iron doors, drawbridges pulled up tight. From the outside, it looks impenetrable. From the inside, it is utterly alone. The very walls that keep threats out also keep connection out. The people inside can see the valley below, full of life and warmth, but they cannot reach it. They have confused the absence of risk with the presence of safety, and in doing so, they have built the most elaborate prison imaginable. The vulnerability paradox is the mistake that intelligent people make most often with other people. We confuse emotional openness with weakness, and self-protection with strength. A smart person is very good at anticipating how honesty might be used against them. They have seen it happen. So they build the fortress, careful language, strategic disclosure, a controlled presentation of self. They are never quite fully present, because being fully present means someone could see something they haven't approved for viewing. But the fortress keeps out everything, including love. Intimacy requires imprecision. It requires saying the slightly wrong thing and being forgiven for it. It requires being seen in an unguarded moment and finding that you are not destroyed by the seeing. A smart person can spend a lifetime being brilliant and correct and managed, and never once feel truly known. As you lie here now, let the drawbridge down just quietly, just for tonight. There is no one in the dark who needs to be impressed or managed. You don't have to be precise here. Let your edges be a little soft, a little unresolved. Notice how the body relaxes when it is not performing. There is a vast, quiet safety in simply being unfinished. Rest in your own incompleteness. It is not a flaw. It is what makes you a person rather than a monument. The language paradox. Imagine you are handed a map of a city you have never been to. The map is detailed, beautiful, full of color and annotation. You study it for months. You memorize the streets, the landmarks, the neighborhoods. You feel you know this city deeply. Then you arrive and the city is nothing like the map. The streets are louder, the colors are different, the smells have no name in any language you know. The map was not wrong, but it was not the city. It was a translation, and something essential was lost in the translation. The language paradox is this: the words we use to describe an experience quietly replace the experience itself. A smart person has a word for almost everything they feel, and in numbing the feeling, they stop actually feeling it. They write grief into a sentence, and the sentence becomes the grief. They explain their joy in a post, and the explanation becomes the joy. Language is the most powerful tool the human mind has ever built, and it is also a subtle thief. It takes the raw, wordless truth of being alive and replaces it with a very convincing copy. We don't notice this happening because the copy is so good. The word loneliness feels like loneliness. The concept of love feels like love. But somewhere beneath the words, there is a layer of experience that has no name, and that is where the most important things actually live. Smart people rarely visit this layer because they are too busy narrating it. As you grow quiet now, let the narration slow. You don't need to name what you're feeling. You don't need to find the right word for the quality of this darkness or the temperature of this particular silence. Just feel it without translating it. Somewhere beneath the words, there is a self that has been waiting patiently all day to be something other than described. Let it simply be. Let the map fold up. Rest in the unmapped territory of yourself. The Boredom Paradox. Imagine you are a king in a palace filled with every wonder imaginable. You have musicians, chefs, and scholars at your beck and call. But because you have seen it all, you are miserable. You find the sunset dull, the music repetitive, and the food tasteless. You are constantly searching for a newer, louder, brighter stimulation. You think you are bored because the world isn't interesting enough, but the truth is, you have lost the ability to see the world at all. The boredom paradox is the curse of the overstimulated mind. We think boredom is the absence of interesting things to do, but it is actually the refusal to accept simple things. A smart mind is often a stimulation junkie. We use our intelligence to find new distractions, new debates, new dramas, new ideas, because we are afraid of what happens when the noise stops. We mistake busyness for vitality and simplicity for emptiness. We have become so sophisticated that we have forgotten how to be amazed by a blade of grass or the sound of rain. This restlessness follows us into the bedroom. We can't sleep because the mind is still looking for a hit of meaning or excitement. We treat the quiet of the night as a problem to be solved rather than a gift to be received. We are bored with the nothingness of rest, not realizing that nothingness is the very thing we need most. Tonight, embrace the boredom. Let the world be uninteresting for a while. You don't need to be entertained and you don't need to be productive. Imagine your mind as a quiet, dusty room with the windows closed. There is nothing to see, nothing to do, and nothing to think. There is a deep, profound power in this emptiness. It is the soil in which peace grows. Let the search for stimulation end. Let the simple, boring rhythm of your breath be enough. In the lack of content, you will find the fullness of rest. The sleep paradox. Imagine you are a hunter trying to catch a small, shy bird in a dark forest. You have the best equipment, the best training, and you are incredibly focused. You chase the bird through the brush, moving carefully, calling to it softly. But the harder you chase, the further the bird flies. The more effort you put into catching it, the more impossible the task becomes. The only way to get the bird to land on your shoulder is to sit perfectly still, close your eyes, and stop trying to catch it entirely. The sleep paradox is the ultimate frustration for the intelligent mind. We are problem solvers. We believe that if we try harder, think more clearly, and apply more willpower, we can achieve any goal. But sleep is the one thing that cannot be achieved. It is an act of surrender, not an act of will. The harder you try to fall asleep, the more you count sheep, or track your heart rate, or force your muscles to relax, the more you alert your brain that there is a task to be done. Your intelligence becomes the very thing that keeps you awake. We treat sleep like a project to be optimized. We buy the best pillows, the best oils, and the best sound machines. But sleep doesn't care about your smart solutions. It only cares about your letting go. It is the reward for the mind that finally admits it is not in control. Tonight, stop hunting the bird. Lay down your effort and your willpower at the foot of the bed. You don't need to do sleep, you just need to allow it. Imagine yourself as a passenger on a boat that is drifting away from the shore. You aren't rowing, you aren't steering, you are just lying back, feeling the movement of the water. You don't need to be smart to fall asleep. You just need to be willing to stop trying. Let the project of tonight end. The bird will land when you are still. The gratitude paradox. Imagine you are a world-class architect standing in front of a beautiful old house. You look at the grand staircase, the high ceilings, and the warm light. But because you are an architect, you only see the cracks in the plaster. You see the floorboards that need sanding and the windows that need sealing. You are so focused on improving the house that you forget to actually live in it. You think that by fixing it, you are showing your love, but the house just wants you to sit by the fire. Gratitude paradox is the struggle of the optimizing mind. Smart people are trained to see what is missing. We are problem finders. This makes us great at our jobs, but it makes us terrible at gratitude. To be grateful requires you to accept things exactly as they are without trying to improve them. It requires you to stop fixing your life and start noticing it. But for a smart person, acceptance feels like giving up. We think that if we are grateful for a flawed life, we will stop growing. Gratitude is the off switch for the restless intellect. It is the moment we stop being an architect and start being a guest. It is the realization that a cracked floorboard is part of a house that is keeping you warm. We use our intelligence to critique our existence, not realizing that we are critiquing a miracle. Tonight, put away the blueprints. You don't need to optimize your life before you sleep. Imagine yourself sitting in that old house by a warm fire with the wind blowing outside. It doesn't matter if the windows leak or the floor squeaks. You are safe. You are warm. You are here. Take a breath and find one simple thing: the softness of the pillow, the silence of the room, and let it be enough. You don't need to improve the world tonight. You just need to be thankful you are in it. The enough paradox. Imagine you are a traveler with a map of an infinite gold mine. You find a nugget of gold, but you think, there must be a larger one further down. You find a vein of gold, but you think, I can find a whole cavern if I just keep digging. You spend your whole life underground, surrounded by riches, but you never feel wealthy because you are always optimizing for the next find. You have forgotten that the goal of the mine was to eventually leave it and live in the sun. The enough paradox is the final trap. An intelligent mind is a more machine. We want more knowledge, more security, more success, and more clarity. We believe that there is a tipping point, a certain amount of achievement or understanding where we will finally feel sufficient. But enough is not a number. It is a state of mind. If you cannot find enough in the silence of tonight, you will never find it in the noise of tomorrow. The mind that is always optimizing is a mind that can never arrive. We have spent these chapters exploring the paradoxes of the mind, the traps that catch the sharpest thinkers, the beautiful, slightly broken architecture of human intelligence. But the ultimate paradox is this: the only way to be enough is to stop trying to be more. The only way to find the truth is to stop trying to own it. The journey is almost over. The gold is already in your hand. You have thought enough. You have planned enough. You have been enough. Imagine yourself finally leaving the mine and stepping out into the cool, dark night. The stars are above you, the earth is beneath you. There is nowhere else to go and nothing else to find. Let the optimization cease. Let the more fade away. You are enough. You are enough. Final soft landing. And so, the lights in the library of your mind begin to dim, one by one. The grand theories, the complex justifications, and the hall of mirrors are all dissolving into the soft, gray mist of sleep. You have traveled through 50 rooms in the architecture of the thinking mind, and you have found that at the very center of all of them, there is no machine, there is only a heartbeat. The final paradox is that the more we try to control our thoughts, the more they control us. But the moment we stop trying to control them, they become as light as feathers, floating away into the dark. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones we never had to prove or defend. Sometimes the greatest wisdom is found in the unwritten blankness of the night. Imagine yourself as a single plank on the ship of Theseus, floating in a calm, starlit sea. You aren't the whole ship, you are just a part. You don't need to know where the ship is going or who built it or what its name is. You only need to feel the water. You only need to feel the stars above you, ancient and indifferent and beautiful. Stories are over. The debates are finished. The lone prophet has come home. The expert has fallen silent. The architect has put down the blueprints. The detective has closed the case. The hunter has stopped chasing the bird. There is nothing left to do but breathe in and out, in and out. The universe is vast and random and beautiful, and you are a perfect, accidental part of it. You are enough. You have always been enough. Sleep now in the gentle, honest ambiguity of being human. Sleep now. Sleep.